Good morning, everybody. You're watching Meet the Candidate. Today, September 2nd, 2021. I'm Ben Dryden, and I'm being joined by Washburn County Sheriff's Deputy and candidate for Washburn County Sheriff, Warren Tuttle. Warren announced his candidacy for sheriff in Washburn County yesterday, September 1st, and he's joining me today so we can get to know a little bit more about Warren. Warren, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ben. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. I was actually looking through these, so we get these call logs that are sent automatically from the counties. I think Washburn's at 6 in the morning every morning. And I really don't spend a lot of time looking through them. I think Dad still does. It kind of lets me know if there's something that we should look into. And I've gotten pretty good at understanding like the numbers. Like I know what 801 is just because, that was Dad's number and the sheriff, etc. And I happened to be looking through it this morning, and I saw your number, I guess, so you, and it was like early in the morning. So my first question is, how late did you work last night? Because that call log made it seem like you were out all night, and now you're on doing a live show.
That's right. Law enforcement is never ending, Ben. And I didn't get home till about 3 o'clock this morning.
What?
So, yeah, I got a few hours sleep, but up bright and early just to talk to you, Ben.
Oh, you're laying it on pretty thick. I love it. Keep it coming. That's awesome. 3 in the morning, so I get up at 4. So basically when you were going to bed is when I got up.
That's right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know why you guys do that job, but I'm so glad that you do. So I really wanted to, I really only written down 2 things to discuss, and that was your bio. So your announcement was yesterday. I want to go through that a little bit more. And then, of course, your candidacy. So let's just start right away. I printed out your announcement that you sent media, so I published that yesterday morning, and I just kind of wanted to go through that a little bit. So, but for you to start off with, tell us a little bit about your background, where you were born,
Sure.
and catch us up until the point you announced for candidacy.
Okay. So I was born and raised on a dairy farm in Glenwood City, Wisconsin. Graduated from high school there in 1991. And my first career path was actually business management. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Stout for a hospitality and tourism management degree and graduated there in 1996. So my original path wasn't necessarily law enforcement. That was something that came much later in life. So I graduated from college in 1996, and from there I started working in the private sector for different businesses. The largest businesses that I worked for included the Mankato State University, Minnesota State University, Mankato, and then a little bit later after that I went to Northern Illinois University, where I worked for the universities in the food service division as a food service director. And, through that time and working in the private sector, it brought me a different part of the world, really. I'm working with many different people, up to 65 employees, dealing with employee relations, marketing, budgeting. Compared to what I do now, it was a fully different game for me.
Yeah.
I did that for a long time, really enjoyed what I did, working with people. Once you have that leadership bug, I'm going to call it, I think it's something you're born with. I don't know how to explain it, but I think once you have that, you're always striving to do more. In around 2000, I started to work as an emergency medical technician on a part-time basis. It was a situation, I was driving through a freeway and came across a car crash, and that helpless feeling of not being able to help that person, not knowing what to do, kind of led me down that path of I want to be prepared for everything possible in my life. And that prompted me to go into becoming an emergency medical technician. So I've done that for 20 years now on a part-time basis. And then it was strange enough, that's kind of what morphed me into law enforcement. Working on the street as an EMT, being involved with all the law enforcement partners that we work with, sooner or later became a situation where I was kind of interested in doing some ride-alongs, seeing what the job was about, and that was approximately 2003.
Hmm.
I did a lot of ride-alongs in Baldwin, Wisconsin, where I was living, and I decided to actually start the academy. Now, the academy was a lot different back then. It was a 400-hour academy that was a modular basis. So I went every Monday night to school for 2.5 years to get my law enforcement accreditation.
Wow.
So,
Oh, you still there?
oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had a question. Yeah.
Oh well, I actually this is right about the part I circled something on your announcement here. It said you had successfully managed accounts. So this was back with prior to or right up to this point,
Yeah.
accounts with a budget of $1.2 million. I was just kind of curious what goes into that.
Well, it's a big responsibility. That's a lot of money to work with. And when you're fiscally responsible for making money for a business, they watch that bottom line very closely, and very much so. And so you're always under a microscope to what can you do to become more fiscally sound, working with your employees, with your management staff, and your partner, whoever you're working for. So it was a large account. But it was something you get used to, something you grow into. When I first started out in that business, I learned a lot from the people I worked with, and it's very similar to what I do in law enforcement now. I've been in law enforcement for 15 years. I didn't get here on my own. I had a lot of good mentors that kind of led me through how to do my job, how to talk to people, and eventually, I took over the role of that person, where I'm currently working as a field training officer for the sheriff's office, and I can be that person to kind of take the newer employees and kind of lead them into what they're getting into. The academy taught them part A. Now, as far as the sheriff's office, I'm going to teach them part B.
Got it. And on here, there it also says Warren was directly responsible for his, excuse me, uh, six managers who oversaw 65 employees. Uh, if you can, just briefly, what was that experience like? What was the challenges you had mentioned earlier about leadership?
Hmm.
You have probably worked for people. I've worked for people like yourself. I was from more the business world before I started Drydenwire, and I've had district managers and regional directors of operations, and zone vice presidents, etc.
Hmm.
And some of them were great. I mean, they understood leadership, they understood communication, they were fantastic. And I've had then other ones that were just like, how did you get this job? Like, I was more disappointed. Like, who hired you to get this job because you're terrible at everything that a leader is supposed to do. So,
Sure.
with the six managers and 65 employees, tell me about some of those experiences.
Well, every day was a challenge. When you're that guy and the buck stops with you,
Mm,
you part of what you do as a leader, obviously, is you train your people to do the right thing. You empower your employees so that you don't always have to be there day and night handling the situations. That you have faith and control of your people. That I guess confidence is the word I'm looking for. That
okay.
they're going to handle things, and you have no doubts that things are going to get done when you're not there.
Yeah. So, just on a side note, empowering employees, empowering, that
Mhm.
word, empowering. If used correctly and done correctly, it's a powerful thing.
Mhm.
But I've also had bosses that used that, and these weren't the greatest bosses in the world, used that really as you just do it.
Sure.
But I'm like, that isn't really empowering me. That's
Mhm.
just, you don't want to do it, and you just say, I don't know, you figure it out, Ben. It's okay. I don't know how to do that. So, what does empowering, I think you kind of just touched on a little bit, but if you could expand on that a little bit more, what does empowering mean to you?
Sure. Well, the first step is proper training, getting people trained to the level of what you expect, setting expectations for employees so they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing. You can't expect them to hold a line that you set if you don't tell them where the line's at or how to get there. But empowering really is having trust with your people that you work with, and setting them up for success. Basically, as a leader, you're always working to train that person to take over someday. Really, I'm not going to be here forever. The next sheriff won't be there forever. Who's going to do it next? And you got to be able to take your employees take your staff, and work with them so that somebody will be ready for that position when it comes.
Yeah. Love that answer. And so next up here, it says that Warren graduated. I'm saying Warren like you're not here.
Yeah.
Graduated from the academy in 2005. Prior to his tenure at the sheriff's office, Warren was a patrol sergeant for the St. Croix Tribal Police Department, responsible for the daily operation of up to 12 officers. So give us a little, history there, and tell us about your time at the St. Croix Tribal Police Department.
Sure. So in 2008, I was hired by Chief Frank Taylor over at the
Oh,
St. Croix
sure.
Tribal Police Department
Mhm.
over in Burnett County.
Mhm.
Back when I started in law enforcement, it was very difficult to get in. Much different than today's climate.
What?
We'll talk about that later. Yeah. So it's a situation where when you're applying for work, there could be as many as 400 applicants for the same job you're trying to get. I was lucky enough to get hired by Chief Taylor in 2008. In 2010, it didn't take long. I was promoted to patrol sergeant at that point, along with another great mentor, Chad Brugman. I worked with over at the St. Croix Tribal Police Department. And from there, things developed very rapidly for me. Chief Taylor was very good as far as a mentor, setting me up for leadership responsibilities, leadership roles. And you always go through situations in your career, and I started the phrase, and a few of us joked about it. What would Frank do? And
Sure.
that's what you kind of, what was the chief expect you to do in this situation?
Mm.
But as far as daily responsibilities, I did a lot of interviewing with Chief Taylor. I was involved with, field training. We wrote a field training manual over there for a 12-week training program. I was involved with the development of that program, which, funny enough, we actually use in Washburn County in the city of Spooner today. So as things developed, when the chief became more comfortable with what I was doing and how I was handling things, obviously more responsibilities came my way. Ultimately, annual reviews, um, employee training, as far as the expectations of who's got their training hours in for the fiscal year. That all kind of landed on my plate, and I was very lucky. There's very few places in law enforcement where you could start a full-time career and within 2 years be in a supervisor role. And I attribute a lot of that to Chief Taylor.
So at this point, so now we're up to the next thing is you were hired by the sheriff's office in 2014. So, but at this point, you've been in law enforcement for a little while. But you had
Yes.
originally stated earlier you got a degree, hospitality, tourism. You were in the private sector. At any point, at this point where we are in your story, now that you're in law enforcement, at any point did you go, I think I made a terrible mistake, right?
No,
What am I
absolutely
doing
not.
here?
No, it's something that I think it's I can't say that you're born with it, but it's something you have to
It's a
have deep
calling.
inside you.
Yeah,
A calling, yeah. Yeah, something, they talk about protect and serve, and a lot of people joke about that, but it really is that calling where every day you go to work and you never know what you're going to get, thrown on your plate. And it's a situation where whatever it is, you have to be prepared to deal with it. So as, my coworkers and everybody in law enforcement, it's something we accept. We never know what we're going to get into, but we go in every day. We do the best job we can.
yeah. So now we're up to you were hired by the Washburn County Sheriff's Office in 2014. So I think, yeah, Dad was still there. My
Yes,
father,
it was.
now retired former Washburn County Sheriff Terry Dryden. So he was still there at the time. So I don't know if I don't know how that stuff works, like who actually does the hiring. So, but you started working in the sheriff's office in 2014, along with daily duties. Again, I'm reading this off of your announcement that's on drydenwire.com. It's on your website. We'll get to that in a second as well. Along with the daily duties of a sheriff's deputy, you are also a field training officer, which I don't know what that means. We'll get into that. Emergency vehicles operations instructor. Kind of think I might know what that is. Vehicle contacts instructor. All right, think you made that up. And a drone pilot. That's awesome. I want to totally do that. So at the beginning here is that you were hired in 2014. Why did you go to the sheriff's office? It sounded like you liked St. Croix Tribal Police Department, Frank Taylor, etc. Why the transition?
A lot of that is political in nature. The
Oh,
tribe
nice.
had gone through some financial issues, and they were forced to reduce the size of our department. And a lot of people I worked with had lost their jobs, and it was
Hmm.
a deep concern to me that I have a mortgage, I have a wife to support,
Right.
and I needed to seriously look at where my future was going.
Sure.
And I loved working with Chief Taylor and the rest of the people at the St. Clair Tribal Police Department, but it was time for me to look at making a change.
Okay, that's a good answer. Like, screw it. I didn't like him anymore. I quit. So you're at the sheriff's office. That's where obviously you still are. 2014. So that's been what, 7 years now, right?
Yes.
About
Yep.
seventh year. Okay. So tell me about the duties. Not the sheriff's deputy. We could spend all day doing that. But the field training officer. What is that?
So a field training officer is a position that most departments have. When you hire a new employee, they come in with a level of training, whether they have years of experience or if they're fresh out of the academy. And the field training officer's position and responsibilities are to take that person at their level of training and to get them to where we want them as far as our expectations. And so the program's set up for as many as 12 to 14 weeks long for a brand new person out of the academy. However, we do adjust it depending on what level of training they have when they come into our department.
Okay. In the business world, or at least in the businesses that I was a part of, we call that like onboard training, and then extended training, etc. So there, how did you get that job? I mean, is it just like, okay, we need a field training officer, and you were the only one? Like everyone was
No,
lined up in a row, and anyone who wants this job take one step forward, and everybody took one step back. So you were the
yeah,
only one left.
sometimes it's that way. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
But how
You
did
know,
you
it,
get that job? Or not
sure.
job, but that role?
When I started with the sheriff's office in 2014,
Mhm.
there were some changes in the department's training program. Prior to that point, I wouldn't say the training program was poor, but a lot of times in history and law enforcement, you're handed a set of keys by the chief, and they say, "Don't do anything wrong, and good luck. See you later." And in today's day and age, and liability as it is, we can't have that
Yeah.
anymore. So we take the responsibility up front to train people properly. And it starts out with an orientation to the sheriff's office, so that we introduce them to the people that are there. We show them where the offices are and how things operate. We have them tour the courthouse, simple things like that for an orientation. And when we actually start training, it's basically 12 weeks of a ride along program. The first 2 or 3 days, I start out as driving the vehicle and handling the calls. And then as they become more comfortable with what's going on, it kind of transitions to a situation where they then are a primary officer, and I'm simply just a backup officer to observe and make sure that things are getting done the way we expect.
It's almost like a mentorship.
Very much so, yes.
So you go around and you show all the hot spots, right? All the places of interest, like that's a crack house, that's a meth house. You want to
Funny
patrol
enough,
this
we
area a
do
little
we
bit
do some
more.
of that. This person lives here. This
Yeah,
person lives there.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because duh. I mean, that's kind of what you should do. The next one on here is emergency, and these are all the positions you still have, or that you are, or roles that you still do. Is that correct?
Yeah. Before you go there, Ben, I want to say one more thing about field training
Sure.
officer. I've been lucky enough since 2010 to train 15 officers throughout my career, and most of them I'm very good friends with yet. And for the most part, all of them are still in law enforcement. So I'm very proud of that.
Well, especially in today's world, that they're still in
Absolutely,
law
things are
enforcement.
changing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep. So
yeah,
much.
you should hold your head up high for that one. And thank you for actually doing all those things. So the next one was emergency vehicles operations instructor, emergency vehicle operations. So it's like, all right, here are the keys, but it's a turn signal. I mean, what are you really teaching them or instructing
Sure, a
them?
lot a lot of this today now has turned in because of liability. Again, it's turned into pursuits. But a lot of times, different suspects flee in their vehicles, and it creates a great amount of liability for everybody on the street, not only law enforcement, but anybody that's walking their dog or driving their car. And so, a lot of what we're teaching today in emergency vehicles operations is that decision factor of should we be chasing this person? Is it worth it? Or is it becoming too dangerous to the point where we know who it is, we're going to call this off, and we're going to go to their house and deal with them at a later time.
Okay.
So a lot of it is we do some course driving for maneuverability of the
Uh,
vehicles.
is that the? I'm sorry to interrupt. Fitzy has talked about this on our Positive Tuesday shows. Is this where the pit? Is that it? Pit maneuver? Or maybe I'm thinking
That's
with the.
absolutely right. Now, in our current situation, we do not have anybody pit trained in Washburn County. It's like a different level of training. That's not something that I can train in my role.
Well, I can do that. Fitzy and I can absolutely come up because I've told him before. I played Grand Theft Auto. I'm very good at doing that
Sure,
maneuver.
you
So
can
if
come
you
up and train us all.
fantastic, love it. And then vehicle contacts instructor. That makes no sense to me. What does that
Sure,
mean?
sure. Now, part of the academy that recruits go through is a portion called Vehicle Contacts Instructor. And what that is simple. We pull cars over on the side of the road. We're making contacts at people's vehicles. So it goes from the basic.
Ah,
There you go. I saw the light bulb go on.
yes. It
It's one of
doesn't.
those
It doesn't go on
situations.
very often.
It's one of those situations where we're training people how to handle these roadside contacts, where sometimes they're high risk, sometimes they're situations we're not sure about. We might pull somebody out of a vehicle to talk to them, versus the traditional talk to them at the side of the window. So I'm also a instructor for vehicle contact.
Okay, so I haven't been pulled over, and now I'm going to jinx it in I don't know, like
Sure.
15 years. But the last time that I was, they came up on the right side of my vehicle when I was pulled over.
Okay.
Not the, my driver's side, right here. So I was looking and looking, and all of a sudden they were gone. And looking in the mirror, I'm like, where'd the? I think it was a state trooper. Is that normal? Again, because I haven't been pulled over in a very long time. Is that part of this as well? And I don't know, just out of curiosity, is that just like the standard operating procedure going forward, or is it only in certain circumstances if there's like heavy traffic?
Part of it is preference. Some people
Oh,
prefer to do
preference.
the traditional driver side approach. But when you're dealing with areas like State Highway 53 where there's a lot of traffic, it's not always very comfortable to be standing between vehicles moving 75, 80 miles an hour and that vehicle that's stopped on the side of the road. So for safety
Right.
reasons, a lot of times we'll move to the right side, the passenger side, just to make it a more safe environment for us.
Cool. All right. So the last thing before we get into your actual announcement, I mean the candidacy, the why, the when, the etc., is that you are also a drone pilot. How many of those? How many drone pilots do we have in the Washburn County Sheriff's Office?
Technically, we have three right now.
Nice.
We do have a drone that was purchased through Washburn County's emergency management,
Mhm.
and we use that drone. We've used it quite a few times. A lot of it's for search and rescue. It could be used for other situations, special response team callouts where we can get an aerial view of what's going on above the scene. But there are three people currently trained in our department to fly the drone.
Special Response Team. I think that
Yes.
also came up with. Oh, I think it was Pank, Washburn County now Chief Deputy Steve Pank was on filling in for Fitzy a while ago, and he brought up SRT, and I said, "Isn't that like SWAT?" Because that's what I just call it, SWAT.
Sure.
Just because I know what that means. I mean, I get it. SRT, I actually didn't know that's what that meant. Special Response Team.
Team. Yep.
Yeah, that does. I guess a little more fluffy with today's world.
Yeah,
Gotta be
yeah. Some
nice.
call them emergency response teams. It's the same thing.
ART.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think SWAT has a certain connotation to it that people maybe don't like.
That's what Pank had said, and I don't understand that because I've never like SWAT. That sounds horrible.
Sure.
What?
The job is the same. They do the exact same thing.
Just call it something different.
Hmm.
That's marketing right there.
That's right.
That's right. All right. How long have you been doing the drone pilot thing? Because that is awesome.
We've only had the drone for probably a little bit less than a year, maybe a year and a half.
Okay. Do you
And
take
so
it home
far,
and just like fly it? Wait, you're in Shell. You live in Shell Lake,
I live
and we
in
got
Shell
the
Lake.
airport.
Yeah,
Well, I'm sure you guys have an exception.
we have some exceptions, but
Yeah.
yeah, we don't just fly it around the airport for fun. It's
Oh.
normally an emergency basis for us to use it like that.
I could just. There's a lot of emergencies that we would definitely need to use that for. Like I was thinking about going getting gas. You could just fire it up and go down to the BP right by the sheriff's office and just hover over it. And nope, it's too expensive today.
That's right. Uh huh.
Yeah, that's like
Somehow I
reason.
think you would get in trouble with it,
Yeah,
Ben. I don't think that's a good idea.
I know. Reason number 139. I should not go into law enforcement. I'd be
Hmm.
terrible at it. All right, so now let's transition here to the candidacy. So you announced that you were running for sheriff. First question is, when did you make this decision? Or when did it first, not the decision to announce that you're running, but when was it first in your brain? Was it a series of events? Was it a one morning you woke up and like, I know, I'm running for sheriff? How did this all come to be? When did you first start thinking about this?
I think it's something that I've always had in the back of my head. It was a situation where, we talked a little bit earlier about having that leadership bug or whatever you want to call it. And working for the sheriff's office, someday I saw that my path would lead to me being involved in an election with the expectation of being the next sheriff. So I think for something, as far as I'm concerned, it was something that was natural for me. But
Okay.
sorry, go ahead.
No, please. I interrupted.
Okay, so I think probably more seriously, April of this year. Uh, I was looking at. I do my job every day. I go out. I do my thing. Uh, but thinking, for the future, what would I want to do as in my position as a sheriff's deputy, with my role as being sheriff, and I'm somewhat limited because being a sheriff's deputy, you're representing the sheriff's office. You're representing the sheriff, and it's a situation where basically, if I wanted to go talk to a Lions Club group, I can't do that because I need permission from the sheriff. And that's kind of my personal, that's what I'm about. I want to be out in the public, meeting people and doing things and doing so much more than I can as a sheriff's deputy. So, I could wait another 4 years and run in 4 more years, but it's a situation where I could stand by and watch as things are happening, or I could be that person that steps up to the plate and start making changes in what I think is the right thing.
So we actually have a question here, and Ben, you are relentless, dude. I love it. Okay, so that's too much. You got to make it a lot shorter. I'll try to put this up on the screen, but I think it goes away in 15 seconds. I don't know if you're going to be able to read it that fast.
Okay.
But I'm going to guess it's about legalization of marijuana. We need law enforcement leaders. Something like oh, maybe it wasn't a question. Or maybe it was. Yeah, so how about that? That wasn't really on our agenda to talk about, but Ben, that's perfectly fine because we haven't talked to Warren about this. It's the first time he's ever been on the show, actually. Your view from a law enforcement standpoint or a personal view, and maybe those are separate, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you currently stand on legalization of marijuana?
It's very interesting because there's a lot of topics I'm sure that will come up during this candidacy where people are looking for answers. And I don't know that there's always a good answer or a one-sided answer. People talk about wearing different caps, your professional life versus your personal life. Do I think that it will be legalized someday? I do think so. I think, though, there are reasons to maybe legalize it. Me personally, in the professional law enforcement, where 15 years experience, you hear the argument of it being a gateway drug, and some people argue, no way. I know there are people out there from the 60s and 70s that smoke marijuana, and that's all they ever smoke, and that's all they ever do. However, I've seen it. I've experienced it with a lot of different people 10, 12 years ago, just smoking weed. And now, unfortunately, they're addicted to methamphetamine and heroin.
Yeah.
And so that concerns me a lot.
Sure.
As far as legalizing it, my concerns as a law enforcement person, I think the biggest problem we're going to see in law enforcement is people that are under the influence of marijuana and driving their vehicles. And we already have enough vehicle crashes with alcohol, fatalities, injuries, that's something that we'd really have to think about and worry about, I think, before it's legalized.
Sure.
There needs to be some kind of test or something we could do on the side of the road to determine if the cause of this incident is from marijuana, just like we do with alcohol right now.
Sure. Okay, so sorry to interrupt our flow there, but again, Ben, thank you for that question. So,
Thank you, Ben.
when decided? So, you announced yesterday. So it's September
Yes.
1st. I had a couple of people message me after we published this on our website that September 1st, that seems early, which it really isn't. There's a lot of factors that kind of go into these things. In September, we usually do start seeing more people announcing for things. But why did you decide for September 1st or this quote unquote early to announce?
Very good. Well, I've been thinking about this for several months. It's actually been in the process since early April. Um, the thing I want to make sure that I get the opportunity to do is my life has basically for the past 15, 20 years has been, I guess I'm going to say service over self. I've been out there helping the community as a law enforcement officer and as an EMT. And that has been my day and night goal in life is just to be out there helping people.
Mm.
So I have to take a step back and change. The first step of that for me is getting out there to meet the people. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, great, Warren's running for sheriff, but who is he?" Um, haven't been out there in the public. I haven't been able to do the things that most people get to do because I've been
Right.
attached to a pager on the ambulance for 24-hour shifts on my days off for the sheriff's office.
Mm.
So, I'm starting to change my expectations of myself, where I want to get out there and start joining more civic groups,
Sure.
getting out there to talk to more people, to find out what their concerns and issues are with the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
So I think it was important for me to announce early so that I'm going to have this opportunity to get out there and actually meet these people. And, that's what I want to do as sheriff. I want to be so involved with the community that everybody's comfortable, either
Hmm.
calling me up or showing up at the office to talk and having that relationship with people. So this is
Yeah.
a long 11-month process for me.
Yeah, and actually now you can do that under the umbrella of a candidate. Now you're not there as specifically the sheriff's deputy.
That's
Now
right.
you can attend a lot more of these under that umbrella to be able to get your name out, and maybe that would actually open up more opportunities to go to certain things. What maybe you wouldn't be able to, not necessarily be able to, but you don't have to jump through nearly as many hoops. So that makes sense. And also, one of the persons that I responded to yesterday, I'd mentioned because we don't know who else is running. By the way, our current sheriff, I just assume everybody's running again, whether it's town board or a legislator or a sheriff. If you're the incumbent, you're in office. I just assume you're running again because data, suggests and well supports that theory that most people that are in office want to stay there. But
Sure.
there's been no official announcements, at least not that I have seen. So officially, you're the only one running for sheriff. But again, I'm sure that's going to change, or I would assume so anyway. But right now, that is it. And if you are running, because I think you had put on there, you're running as a Republican. Last election cycle, the sheriff's race was essentially decided in the primary.
That's right.
So this really isn't well, next November, jeepers, it's a long way away. No, it's actually, what is that, August something, isn't it?
August 9th is the primary election. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So depending, I mean, unless there was a Democrat or independent, if it's just you, or if there's other, our current sheriff, I think ran it as a Republican. So if he does announce that he's running again, then again, this would likely be, or there's a good chance for it to be a primary election for the office of sheriff, just like it was last time. Speaking of our current sheriff, how does that work? So you work at the sheriff's office. You have announced that you are running for sheriff, which be for that person's job,
Sure.
obviously. Is this one of those? I mean, did he find out yesterday that
No,
you're running
no,
for sheriff?
no, absolutely not. It's a situation I felt that it was important for me to talk to the sheriff one on one and let
Uh-huh.
him know my intentions. Um,
Good.
you know, I didn't want him to find out through the grapevine or through another person. So the second, before I even told anybody, my wife and I were the only two that knew that I
Mm.
was interested in this. I went into the sheriff's office and sat down across from his desk and explained my intentions to run for the office of sheriff.
Sure. And how long ago was that about?
Oh,
Uh,
I'd say maybe
Mayish.
6 weeks, two
Oh,
months.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the decision to run for sheriff. Now I've decided, this leadership bug and my career path and etc. Go into a little bit further as to why you want to run, why you want to be the sheriff, why someone should consider you to be the sheriff, and why they would want to find out more information and or vote for you eventually. But what
Sure.
are some more reasons as to this is what I saw, this is what I see, and this is why I think I should be the next sheriff?
Sure. Absolutely. Well, part of being this leadership role, I'm a field training officer. I do these extra things for the sheriff's office, so I'm already an informal leader at the department. I'm already the guy behind the scenes that volunteers to do the extra duties. I think I'm a person who's trusted at the sheriff's office, and you know, preparing for that next position. I've talked to some of the other deputies already after I announced, and I think that there was no surprise that I was going to be someday in that position running for sheriff. But as I talked about earlier, I'm in a situation where I can sit back and observe what's going on, or step forward and take control and kind of lead us down the path that I think is right.
Sure.
So, we've got a lot of good people at the sheriff's office and the jail, dispatch, people working the road, investigations, that do a great job day in, day out. And I know that working together with those people, that we could do a lot of great things. We talked a little bit about the different path. I see a situation where Washburn County deserves a sheriff that is maybe more involved with the community. People expect that the sheriff, we work, the sheriff's department, the sheriff's office, the sheriff himself, we work for the people. And you have to be able to talk to people to find out where the issues are. Something that I talk about in my website is my plan to meet with the community one-on-one, whether it's roundtable forums in different communities. I'd like to sit down and talk to people on a situation where we could do maybe twice a year, sit down and talk about what they think is the problems in our community, and having that open relationship where I can explain with the sheriff's office about what we're doing to take care of the problems that they have. There are a ton of issues out there. We can go on for days talking about all the different things that I think people are concerned about, but we have to prioritize where we're going to put our resources, and I think that's something that's important. I see the sheriff's office, the position of the sheriff itself. Traditionally, it's a Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 position, and I personally don't think that that's right. I think that people need to be able to have contact with the sheriff. Maybe at different times of the day, different times, weekends, and not to say that I'd be working every weekend, but I think I want to be out there in the public, working alongside the people that I currently work with, to show that I do care and that I want to make Washburn County the best it can be. I want to be that guy that will be able to go out and talk to these community groups, whether it's the Lions clubs or snowmobile groups, or having conversations at the high school with students about bullying or drugs, alcohol, things like that. We have a big problem with mental health in our communities, and it's something that it's kind of a taboo. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it's out there and it occurs. And law enforcement alone can't take care of this problem. A lot of times we're the front person that walks into the situation to find out what's going on, but we need to rely on our coworkers, our health department, our public health, the other people that work for Washburn County to help with these issues. We can't do it alone, and I think the sheriff needs to sit down with those people and build a stronger relationship with them, so that we can together form a coalition and move forward to take care of these issues together.
Are you seeing these issues, the things that you had just referenced or kind of went over, being in the community and the contact and availability and et cetera? Is this a situation where you are looking, and again, nothing, I would assume, you're a professional, it's not a personal thing, that you're looking at our current sheriff's office vis-a-vis, or specifically sheriff, and going, these things we need to get done, and I don't see these things getting done, and therefore I will come in and I want to get those done? Or is this, nope, we're already doing all those things, I'm just going to put my spin on it?
Sure. Yeah, so I think every sheriff has their own agenda. Your father had a situation where he did what he thought was right.
Yep.
I think Dennis has the same ability, where he's currently doing what he thinks is right with his role as sheriff. But I know that I would do things differently. I think that the people deserve to have somebody that's more connected with them, somebody who is more out and about in the public, and I think I'm the person for that job. I know I could do that position.
Do you think your peers respect you?
I think so. I work with these people day in, day out. There's a great level of trust between all of us. When you have life and death situations that you're running into the unknown, I know that any law enforcement officer that I work with in our county has my back. Um, Situation where are we going to see eye to eye on everything of what I think is the right direction for the sheriff's office? Now, we might not always agree on situations, but I know I'm the person that's willing to sit down and discuss the differences. I think there's common ground on every role, every situation we run into, and I think it's just having the ability to sit down and talk out these situations so that in the end we come to a mutual agreement.
So we have something here from Romaine Quinn, former legislator and now real estate mogul, as it were. All excellent answers so far. Question, why did you choose to run as a Republican?
Perfect, Romaine. Thanks for the question.
It
So,
wasn't that good of a question. Don't give him too much prop.
so I think that's a very good question, though. I've always seen myself as more of a person in politics that's more middle of the road. In today's arena, if you are not left, you are right, and we don't get along, we don't like each other, and that's definitely not me. I'm a person that is definitely more middle of the road. I could see some benefits of both Republican and Democrat. However, the political climate in the law enforcement aspect in the country right now is kind of what leads me to be that Republican. The law enforcement people, we work very hard day and night to do the best we can with what we've got, and I feel that the Democrats are a lot of times attacking law enforcement in general. And I'll be the first to say that there are people out there that are not good people, not good cops. They should not be cops.
Yeah.
But I think that's any profession that you look at, there are those people out there. But I think that in general, law enforcement is very good. We do a very good job at what we do, and I think being a Republican speaks to me more as far as the agenda for law enforcement.
All right, I only have three things that I've written down during this chat. I want to make sure I ask you. Okay, I can't read my handwriting. Are you no? What would you, if elected? If elected, what would you do? What would be the first thing that you would do differently, or the first thing that comes to mind, or the biggest thing, whatever you want? What would you do differently than the current sheriff?
Okay, the very first thing, I think right now in law enforcement with the political climate as it is, we're really struggling to staff our office. We're very lucky that we do have patrol deputies that are long-term deputies, people that have been around a lot of years. But as the climate changes and there's less respect for law enforcement, it starts to wear on people. And sooner or later, we're going to see some people start to leave our career, our local departments.
Yeah.
And I think the very first thing that I would address as sheriff is recruiting. Dealing with the people that I currently work with. What can I do to make their job better? What can I do to make them feel more appreciated? What can I do to ensure that they're going to stay working for Washburn County Sheriff's Office?
Well, when we had Chief Deputy Steve Pank on a month ago or so, I know he was talking about that and trying to come up with ideas, and I think he has, not like trying to. I mean, he's come up with some ideas to address just that thing as well. Hold on, I think there's a question. I can't read it down there, so I got to put it on the screen. Hopefully it's okay. Being involved in EMS, can we look forward to some joint training activities with the Washburn County Sheriff's Office? Good question, Steve. Don't know what it means, but good question.
Sure. It's interesting because, I work closely with, obviously, the EMS folks because I've done it for so long, and my relationship with the fire departments. And that's always a concern. When we walk into, large, emergencies where it takes, obviously, teamwork to get through the situation. We all depend on each other to get the task done. Even if it's a two-car accident with 6 patients, that's more than any department can handle. So we depend on working together to, make sure people get transported in a timely manner, that there's on-scene care being provided, traffic control, and
I get it now.
So working together, we do it on a daily basis, but we don't train together. There's been a real big disconnect
Okay,
between
yeah.
law
Well,
enforcement.
has that? I'm sorry to interrupt, but has that been in the past? Has there been joint training activities from EMS with the sheriff's office, or is this something we would like to see at some point? Or is it was there and now it's not there anymore for whatever reason? Don't know. It just kind of went away.
Sure. Well, since I've been with the sheriff's office, we have not done any training.
Okay.
I have not been involved in any training with EMS or
That'd be a
fire.
good idea.
I think absolutely, because when we have the big one that occurs, whether it's the jumbo jet falling from the sky, or they had the Cortec explosion a number of years ago.
Yeah.
Those are situations where it takes all hands on deck kind of situation. But we need to work together. We need to train together. We need to know what the other person's capable of doing, and understanding each other's roles. Because sometimes on scene, we get frustrated because we don't understand what the other guy's doing, and they think, well, gosh, those cops are just standing around. When we're identifying people, we're trying to handle their backgrounds and what's going on there. So
Yeah. So do you know Steve?
yeah, I actually worked with Steve on North Ambulance. I've resigned my
North
position
Ambulance.
last
Okay.
month. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Steve. I didn't know that was your job, but that was a great question. I've never even thought about that.
Thanks, Steve.
So I have a couple of more personal questions, or just questions I just want to ask here that I wrote down.
Sure.
So I've had some officers or deputies, or in my lifetime, because I was a sheriff for 28 years. Once when they meet me, you're Bender. Oh, Terry Dryden. I'm like, yep, yeah, I used to work for him. And every time I hear that, I'm like, oh boy. Here we go. Because sometimes it's like, you know what, your dad's he's tough to work for. I'm like, dude, I've been his son for 40 some years. Trust me, I know. He puts a pretty high bar, high standard. I get it. What was it like working for Dad before he had retired?
It was a good opportunity for me, because somebody who's been in the position for that long, I believe it was 28 years, maybe a little over
28 years as sheriff, and then over 38 years in law enforcement.
You have somebody who's just a well of knowledge. He's been there, he's done it, he's dealt with every situation out there. So being able to sit down and talk with him a little bit, when I worked for him, and many times since he's retired, Terry was the kind of guy that I could always count on. Hey, Terry, here's the situation. What do you think? And he's always got an opinion. So it's always helpful to get information from somebody who's been there, done that. But as far as working relationship, great guy to work for. I think he's been in the department so long, held the office for so long, well respected man throughout the state of Wisconsin, and it was great to have the opportunity to work for him.
Tracy Finch, Burnett County Sheriff. Do you know her?
I know Tracy fairly well. Yeah, we worked together when I worked for the St. Croix Tribal Police Department.
Right, duh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts and views on her? Please say something negative, because I can't. I've yet to hear one negative thing about her from anyone, and I'm trying to find one.
Tracy's very much like your father. Tracy's got a lot of experience in law enforcement. She's been there for a number of years, a few decades, and I think it's a situation where Tracy is exactly what Burnett County needed at that time.
Yeah.
They were struggling a little bit. Tracy had staffing shortages and a lot of issues when she first took over as sheriff.
Yeah, that's right.
And not to mention medical issues that she was going through. Yeah. And she's turned the department around, and she's been very successful. I've had some conversation with her. I don't know if she's going to be running for another term. I hope she does. But Tracy's a great person. If you talk to the people in Burnett County, they're very happy with what she's doing.
Wow. Well, that was boring. I wanted, give me a.
You wanted the dirt, huh?
Yeah, something. Because I have so much respect for her as well. As long as we're going through these, do you know Fitzy? Have you spoken with him? Do you know him at all? Have a relationship with him?
I've reached out to Chris a few times. I've met him once, in casual passing around the 4th of July.
That's right. We were down at we saw you there. Fitzy was there. And, yes.
So that was the first time I actually personally met him. I have seen him on, believe it or not, a crash scene. It was a Sunday morning, a 2-car crash on Highway 53. And who comes along in a pickup truck squad car? Yeah, it was Chris Fitzgerald. So we had an opportunity to talk on the side of the road a little bit that day. But I haven't talked to him a whole lot. But
you don't need to. No.
I'll be looking to talk to him a little bit more here in the future.
He'll talk to you if you come on the show or something.
Sure, yeah, we can do that too. Yeah, if that works for him, we'll do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. All right. And the last one I wrote down here, because I'd asked Pink about it as well. Give me something juicy. Give me something good about. So my wife, everybody I think at this point knows, is Drew. She works at the DA's office. Obviously, in your capacity in the sheriff's office, you must have dealings. I don't know what that is. Phone calls, emails, going, whatever it is that you guys do.
Sure.
What is your working relationship with Drusha?
It's been somewhat limited. She's always busy. Every time I'm going in the office to speak to the district attorney or the assistant district attorney, she's always busy on her computer. But she's always a friendly smile when you walk in. She's great to work with. And we're very lucky in the sheriff's office to have partners like Jerusha and the people at the district attorney's office. We also work very closely with the clerk of court's office.
Yeah.
And we couldn't do the job without them. We all have our responsibilities, and we're kind of the front line. We take care of things at the very precipice at the beginning of things happening, and then when it goes to the district attorney's office, for the most part, we move on to the next call. So every once in a while, it's great to get feedback from Jerusha and the rest of the office at the district attorney to get feedback on cases. And I especially like when she sends me emails saying that jury trials have been canceled. It's always a good day when I get those emails.
All right. Well, you lost me. I mean, I literally didn't pay attention to any of that because I knew
Sure,
right away you started saying nice things. I'm like, man,
Sure.
she's like the one. Well, she and probably Tracy Finch now, but Drew, you have to find one person. So if anybody knows Drusha, and just send me an email sometime and just give me something because man, she's always just perfect all the time at work and at home, and not at work. I mean, not perfect. We all make mistakes. We all get better. But yeah, it just drives me nuts because that sets the bar, again, pretty high for me. So the better she is, the harder it is for me to maintain that. So I got to
Well, you know what they say, Ben? They say that our wives compliment us. So, they offset what we don't have. So
like
I'm in the same
intelligence.
situation.
And yeah, totally get
Megan's a great person. My wife keeps me grounded, so I know exactly what you're
I
saying.
met your wife, actually, it was that same time, the 4th of July weekend. So it was on the 3rd. It's Saturday. We were by Matt, my brother's ice cream stand thing there. And I met your wife. She's a sweetheart.
I'm lucky to have her. We've been together
Yes, you
32 years and been married for 25 now.
Wow. Yeah, she was awesome. What did she do? Maybe you don't want to get into that. I'm sorry, but I think you've told me once, but I forgot.
Yeah, she works for Washburn County in the aging department, and she's the specialist that takes care of activities at the community centers throughout Washburn County.
All right. Mike Schaefer, Face of Ben, you outkicked your coverage with Drew. Okay. Took me a second to understand what that meant. That's great. Warren, thank you so much for being on. What did you want to discuss or anything else that you wanted to say that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Sure. Obviously, this is very new. Announcing yesterday, word's just starting to get out. I've got a long road ahead of me. I know that my path is different than the current sheriff. And, I want to get more involved with the community. I want the community to be more involved with the sheriff's office. You'll see on my website, I talk a lot about my slogan or my motto, whatever you want to call it, is experienced, motivated, and transparent. And I think this is something that is important for somebody in the sheriff's position. What we do isn't a secret. People need to be aware of what's going on out in our communities. And I think being transparent is a big part of that. I think the people deserve to be part of what's going on. The people need to be heard. The people need to be involved. And that's something I'm really going to push for through my candidacy.
Sure.
And if anybody out there knows me, they know that I'm not a person that's going to give these campaign promises that are going to be something they're going to fall to the wayside. I'm not going to promise something if I can't come through with it. So if you look at my website, and I encourage people to go to it, www.warrentuttle4sheriff.com. That's just the foundation of what I'm looking to do for the sheriff's office. I talk about relationship building. I talk about recruitment, retention, and training of the sheriff's department staff. And I talk about transparency and things I think we need to do for the community. So I really want to be open throughout this campaign. I have on a Facebook page. You can check it out.
Warren Tuttle for Sheriff?
Warren Tuttle for Washburn County Sheriff. You
Washburn
can look
County
it up
Sheriff.
there. There's an email address. Please reach out to me if you have questions. There's also a phone number involved. The one thing I have to be careful about with people I talk to is that there's policies for the sheriff's department that I cannot campaign when I'm on duty.
Oh, right. Well,
So
yeah.
if somebody approaches me and I'm in uniform, it's probably going to be a very brief conversation because by policy I can't talk
Yeah.
about the campaign when
And
I'm working.
that's probably good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
And
I encourage people to leave messages, send emails. I promise I will get back to them with answers as soon as I can.
by the way, www, that is so 90s. You don't
Yeah,
have
I
to
know.
say that anymore. It's just WarrenTuttleForSheriff.com. Check him out there or find him on his Facebook page. You say an email address if you have any questions or concerns. Send it there. Brother, thanks so much for coming on. We'll
I
have you back
appreciate it.
on when we get a little bit closer, towards the election. But thank you so much for taking the time to come on and being,
Yeah,
ironically, transparent.
yeah, that's right. Thanks
See
for
what
the
I did there?
invitation.
Yeah.
I really want the people to learn more about me, and this is the first step. And I thank you for your time, Ben.
Awesome. Special thank you to our guest today, Washburn County Sheriff's Deputy in Canada for Washburn County Sheriff, Mr. Warren Tuttle. I'm Ben Dryden, and you've been watching a Meet the Candidate on DrydenWire.com. We'll see you next Tuesday for our latest episode of Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy. Until then, stay safe, stay positive, and as always, have a blessed day.